Okay, so we will start. So welcome everybody to this week's edition of Paleoperks. We're really excited to have Abdur Rahman from the Physical Research Laboratory in India join us this week. And Abdur's talk is a history of the forest fire in the Western Himalaya and its linkage to climate and human. So we'd also like to make an acknowledgement to the Quaternary Research Association for financially supporting this talk today. So the format of today's seminar, if you're new here or you haven't been to Paleoperks in a little while, so we have a quick welcome and announcements for 5 minutes, which we're doing now, followed by Abdur's talk and a moderated Q&A for a short time. After the Q&A finishes, we'll also have a tea time with our speaker this week, which we very much encourage you to stay for. And don't forget to send all of your questions via the chat to the questions at Paleoperks host, who this week is Chrissy. So a bit of housekeeping. So Paleoperks values the participation of everyone interested in the paleosciences. Please remember to abide by our code of conduct during today's seminar. If you somehow found yourself here without having signed this, please take a moment to go to our website and familiarize yourself with this. Please remember to mute yourself for the duration of the talk. You shouldn't be able to unmute yourself, but if you find that you can, please don't, so that we have a nice quiet environment for our speaker. You can ask questions by chatting to the questions at Paleoperks host, or you can use the raise hand function as well. So if you do that, we'll unmute you and you can ask a question by voice. Any technical issues should also go to the questions host. We have closed captions built into our Zoom, so you can use the CC button at the bottom of your screen to show or hide them. If you show them for you or hide them for you, then this will only be for you and won't be for the, if you hide them, it will only be for you and not for the rest of the audience. You can also nominate outstanding early career researchers using the link that will be dropped in the chat very shortly. And we'll also have our weekly feedback form for demographic information. So this is anonymous, optional, but very much encouraged, and you'll be able to find that in the chat window very shortly. So now it's my great pleasure to introduce this week's speaker, Abdur Rahman. Abdur Rahman did his bachelor's in applied geology and his master's in applied geology at the Department of Geology at the Aligarh Muslim University, followed by a PhD in Earth Sciences at Pondicherry University and Physical Research Laboratory in India, where he's currently a postdoctoral fellow. And now I'll hand over to Abdur Rahman for his talk.
Thank you. So hello everyone, I'm Abdur Rahman and working as a postdoctoral fellow in Pune, Ahmedabad, India. So before I start, I would like to take a moment to express my gratitude to the organizers at Paleoperks for giving me an opportunity to present at this event. So let's start actually. So my talk is actually on the forest fire history of the Western Himalaya and its linkage to the climate and human. So actually, in recent decades, we have seen a significant increase in the frequency and this severity of the forest fire worldwide, with devastating consequences for both this environment as well as the local economies. And the Amazon and the Australian wildfires were particularly notable as they burned large areas of forest and grassland, leading to the loss of wildlife as well as the plant life. So actually, this fire actually.
We can't see your screen. Did it not do this when we started?
It's visible now?
We can see it, yeah. That looks great.
Okay, so here's the topic of this talk, actually, the forest fire history of the Western Himalaya and its linkage to the climate and human. And in recent decades, actually, we have seen a significant increase in the frequency and severity of the forest fire worldwide, with the devastating consequences for both environment as well as the economies. And this actually, the Amazon and the Australian wildfires are particularly notable as they burned large areas of forest and leading to this loss of wildlife as well as the plant life. So actually, these fires had a major impact on the global climate by releasing a huge amount of this greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So in addition to the environmental impact, it's also affect the economic condition of any region. So these actually forest fire are the major concerns in many parts of the earth, particularly in the dry areas. Uh, Actually, this fire can be started by the variety of factors like including lightning strike or the human activities. So the first fire actually was reported around the Silurian period, and the timing of this age of this Silurian is around 443.8 to 419.2 a million year. So, in fact, before the emergence of the humans on the Earth, actually, fire have played a very vital role in Earth ecosystem and natural landscape by promoting the growth of certain plant species and helping out to clear out dead and decaying vegetation. For example, some type of plants have seeds that require the heat of a fire to germinate and may not be able to grow in areas that have not recently experienced fire. So, uh, with the advent of the human civilization, actually they have used the fire to evolve themselves and to ease their life. So here actually the along with the use of the fire. So as this human population have expanded, our use of fire has increasingly come to dominate some ecosystem and alter the natural process in ways that can threaten the sustainability of these uh, landscapes. So actually, the first fire evidence is 1.5 million year, and there are some South Africa, and it's around 1.7 billion year. So at this site, actually, scientists have found some ash charcoal burn bones. So on the basis of that, they have reported that maybe it was a time when the first fire occurred. But these actually are these archaeological sites where the evidence found actually can provide the valuable insight into the past, but interpreting the evidence required a theoretical framework. So the biological models, biological models like a cooking hypothesis and social brain actually have been proposed to explain the various aspect of the human evolution, human evolution. So on the basis of that, these are the three evolutionary scenarios for the forest fire, how they can be used for the human development. From the fire, there are a lot of chemical products comes into the atmosphere. This greenhouse gases is one of them. Apart from that, there's the photochemically reactive compounds like the carbon monoxide, this volatile organic compounds, and as well as the fine and coarse particulate matters. This particulate matter is actually known as the black carbon as well as this pyrogenic organic carbon. This is actually the soot or the charcoal. That's the remaining part of the biomass. But on the basis of the temperature, actually, they are characterized as like the pH, that is polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons that actually uh, produce within this temperature range, 150 to 300, and then levoglucosan, that is 100 to 400 degrees centigrade, and in the last is the black carbon, that is the pyrogenic carbon, and it's produced at a high temperature. But how this, so actually in my study, I have used this black carbon as a proxy for the Paleofire. So how actually, what is the dynamics of the black carbon in the environment? So suppose there is a here is a region where the fire is occurring. So the C3 plants and C4 plants, they have defined on the basis of their photosynthetic pathway that we will discuss in the next slide. So actually, this black carbon produced and then transported to the lake or the ocean, and then deposited into the lake year by year, or the and then year by year. So if we use this lake sediment or the ocean, actually we can reconstruct the forest fire in any region. And if we do this carbon isotopic composition of this black carbon, actually we can tell about the this vegetation type, as well as the what was the climate at that time. So during the procedure of this burning of the black carbon, actually there are some offsets, means from biomass to the black carbon, there are some CO2 losses. On the because of that, there are some fractionation between these. And for the C3 plant, it is reported the average mean fractionation is around 0.3 per mil, and for C4 plant is around minus 1.77 per mil. But still, there are a lot of studies required to constrain this offset. So what are the procedure to separate the black carbon? So actually, we collect the samples and then we first decarbonate and remove the carbonate fraction, and then actually we use HF and HCl to make sure that if any carbonate is available between the grains, so actually we use HF to separate them, and then use HCl to decarbonate, and then we use actually K2Cr2O7 and H2SO4 to remove the organic fraction, and the final residue will be black carbon, and then we measure in the elemental analyzer and isotopic ratio mass spectrometer. So before going to the result, I want to give a glimpse of the carbon isotopes. So there are three isotopes of carbon. As you can see, the abundance and the C4. These are 14C is actually the radioactive, and the ratio of the this 13C by 12C in the atmosphere is around 0.11, and it's changed depending upon the process and the pool where we are nearing. So actually we denote this 13C by 12C by the delta, and that this delta 13C can be determined by the ratio in the samples divided by the ratio in the standard minus and into 1000. So on the basis of that, actually we report this delta 13C value. It represents the carbon isotopic signature in any organic or in any samples. So actually we use PDB line, means this delta 13C value reported with respect to the VPD night, but it is not very readily available. So actually we use the lab standard, in our case we actually use cellulose, and the value of the cellulose is this minus 24.72, plus minus this is the precision. So how actually we use this delta 13C of the black carbon for the climate interpretation. So suppose there is a region where C3 and C4 plants are occurring. So in general, actually these are C3 plants are dominant in the wetter climate, and C4 dominate in the drier climate. So actually, if the fire occur and the both are burning, so the black carbon have the signature of the C3 and C4, the mixture of the C3 and C4. So if we are getting the higher values like -9 to -13 between these are the so it means that the climate was drier at that time. If this delta 13 of black carbon is lower, then it means the wetter climate. But in some cases, like at the higher altitude region, where very rare C4 plants have been found. So in this case, actually, this delta 13C value of the C3 plants are dependent upon the moisture and the precipitation condition. So during the wet period, actually, this delta 13C of the C3 plants are lower, and in dry period, this is actually higher. So similarly, in this condition also, if we are getting the lower value, we can interpret as a wetter climate, and for this for the higher value, we can interpret as the dry climate. So before going to the result, so why I have chosen this the Western Himalaya. Actually, Western Himalaya in the past has actually have acted as the gateway of India for the for human migration. Actually, studies have found that this is the region that have connected from the India to the other Asia and the Europe region. So actually, I have chosen this Kashmir region, where I have extracted two cores. First one is the Ural Lake. That is actually live lake, and I have collected the core sediments that the length of the core was around 2.4 meter, and the another one is the forest block paleo. So actually, the, uh, this is the paleo lake that was existed at a altitude of around 3,500 meter, and it is a there is no lake. Means the lake was burst, and now there is only the crystalline sequence are there. And this is the chronology of the lake actually. Chronology of the lake, this is for the Uller lake, and this is for the forest block lake. So actually this Uller lake actually have covered around 4,000 years, and this Paleo lake actually have covered around 33,000 years. So the come to the result, this on the x-axis actually I have plotted on the x-axis I have plotted this age, and on the y-axis I have plotted different climate parameters. As this is delta 13C black carbon from our result, and this I have taken from the literature. As this pink 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 box actually are showing the drier climate in the region. So here you can see delta 13C BC actually are higher at these points. Also, actually, these are showing the colder climate in the region, and this colder climate actually region has also reported from these different parts of the northern hemisphere, like from this from the South China Sea, this is from the Western China, this is a southeasterly index. So actually, on the basis of that, we have found that on the basis of that, actually, we have we can say that on this Western Himalayan climate actually was directly controlled by the change in the North Atlantic oscillation temperature changes in the region. So actually, we have found almost every colder events, like H3, H2, H1, and wide events. There is a one. There is also one event that is 9.3 kilo year event. Actually, this 9.3 kilo year event actually it is very rare that we have found in these samples and this was there's a one paper there's a one study I forget the name of the author. So actually they have reported around lake bursting in the Canada and this North America, and I have using the Lake Michigan and Lake Huron. Uh, that in that actually they have reported this 9.3 kilo year colder records, and we have found in this Western Himalayan region. And another one is this uh, this uh, this is the from the Uller Lake core that is around 4,000 years. So in this actually we have found there are two climatic phases, two climate phases. First one, that is a higher delta 13C of the black carbon is a high black carbon that actually showing the drier climate, and then it goes down around 1500 and it's showing in the wetter climate. But within this drier phase, actually, we have also found an extreme dry condition at around 2500 to 2500 years, 100 years, actually, which correlated with this low western, this low north and Atlantic oscillation index. So overall, these two plots and these two are showing that the western Himalayan climate was directly controlled by this westerly index, and there are these colder climates, that are global climate events that have seen in the Western Himalayan region. So come to this forest fire. So this one is from the Uller Lake from 0 to 33 kilo year. On the y-axis we have plotted a black carbon flux and delta 13 of BC for the climate. So here interestingly actually from 20,000 to 30,000 we have found this very low concentration of very low flux of the black carbon, but within this very low concentration we have found few peaks actually, and these is actually coincided with this uh, wetter climate. But after 20,000, actually, we have found the manifold increase in the black carbon flux, and that is actually coincided with this drier climate. And after that, again increase during the Holocene. Holocene, actually, that might be correlated with this uh, the beginning of the human activities in the region. So during this time period from 30,000 to 20,000, there are several studies have been done in the region, and they have reported that during this time period the glaciation this glaciation was occurring, and the climate was very cold, very cold. And after that, and these are the three uh, these are the three studies that I'm showing here, that actually showing this the glacial period, or the glacial advancement period in the Western Himalayan region. So after that, the deglaciation occurred. So on the basis of that, actually, I have this hypothesis, or we can I am giving a theory that maybe during the glacial advancement period, because this glacial was coming to the lower altitude region, this the very low crystal productivity was there, and because of that very low biomass fuel was there. So the burning was occurring, but uh, very low black carbon flux have been re-recorded in this sedimentary record. But after the declassification started, the vegetation has started to grow. There are enough productivity, or the higher amount of vegetation that has act as a fuel for this as a fuel for this high BC flux in the region. And in the last 10 kilo year, actually, that the peak around 5,500 years, this one actually directly coincided with this development of the Neolithic culture in the Western Himalaya region, as well as other record, archaeological records that have supported that the human activity has started during this time period. So actually, it's directly correlated. And after 4,000 years, in this plot I have plotted from 0 to 4,000 years. Actually, we have found a very high black carbon concentration around 3752 to around 28 to 2,700 years. And during this period, actually, the previous studies, archaeological studies, have suggested that the population were settled at a high altitude region. And during the same time period, these the transition of crop from wheat to rice have been also noticed. So yeah, there are some theories that are actually showing that the people were using snow melt. What means they use uh, uh, they melt the snow and produce the water for the cultivation. So during as well as during the same time period, the smelting of the copper and iron has been also reported. And then the pastoralism has also started. So this piece, actually, it might be showing the it is showing this it is because of the human activity. But after this time, actually, this the black carbon actually has decreased. So the previous studies have suggested that after the 2,500 years, the population were migrated to the this valley region. Valley region is a flat, and there are lot of means grassland. So actually, maybe because of that, now at, at that time the people had this flat land, so they did not need to burn the forest for agriculture and other stuff, as well as there were large bodies. So the crop cultivation was easily accessible in the valley region. And after that there is a sudden increase, and it is around 800. So it is actually, it might be because of the human migration from the west region. And you can also see there is a one peak. There's a another record from the micro charcoal data from the spread at all to 2022, and they have found means uh, uh, results are exactly similar like us, but except this one. So actually, we have interpreted it maybe because of the regional differences in the, it's because of regional differences. And another one is the black carbon from the Lake Kalakuli, and the charcoal index from the Europe and the Asian monsoon region. And we did not found any similarities between our results. So it might be possible that, yeah, another evidence that it was not by the climate control. It was because of human induced. So thank you. This is a summary of the talk. We have found different climate, different globally reported events like S3, S2, S1, YD, and 9.3 climate event. And 3.5 is actually we have found. So it might be because of this error in this radiocarbon dating, as well as we have found in this study that the increase in the forest fire from 33 to late Holocene, and it might be because of the transition from the climate to human induced fire. And then there's a one interesting thing, that the wet and dry phases were both were responsible for the forest fire in the region, and it needs more study to understand how this has happened in the region. And the another is the high intensity of forest fire. We, we are found at around 5,500 years actually, which was because of the human induced burning in the region.
Great. Thank you so much for a really awesome talk. Bio talks are always really fun to see. So just a quick reminder to the audience to send your questions into the questions at Paleoperks post via the chat, and I will make sure that these get to Abdur Rahman. So we have a question in already, which I'll paste in the chat so that you can follow along. So thank you for a great talk. Are your climate records affected by the movement of the intertropical convergence zone?
That actually, I'm not sure, but it might be possible that it was affected by the intertropical convergence zone. I have to check this the exact location of shifting of the intertropical convergence zone. But yeah, in this, there are studies that have showed them there's a western Himalayan climate, mostly from the eastern part of the western Himalaya was controlled by the intertropical convergence zone. But in this, actually, I have to look.
Okay, nice. So something that we always like asking our speakers about is what was the sort of the favorite part of your field work? You mentioned that you got to do some.
Yes.
Which parts of your field work for your project did you most enjoy?
I did not get actually what.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought you mentioned in your talk that
Yeah, actually, I have went for this core collection in the Kashmir.
Okay.
So there's a one lake, and there's a one Lacustrine sequence that is actually around 3,500 meters. So we have tracked there and collected samples there. And for the lunar core, actually, we have just normally collected this sediment core using the core.
So it was all terrestrial field work then on.
Yeah, it was a terrestrial field.
Cool. what do you kind of see as the next steps for your project at the moment?
Next project actually, now actually I'm this I am planning for this area current Cambrian transition boundary to understand those part. I have studied in the applied geology. I'm more interested in the geological problems, so I have got a opportunity, so we have done this. But presently I'm doing this area current transition body, oxygenation and biology, how these were regulated during that time period.
Cool. So with your geochemical analyses, do you look at which other proxies do you look at aside from the ones that you've mentioned, or do you
Apart from this black carbon, actually we have done this major oxide and trace elements, as well as other stable isotope organic matter like carbon and nitrogen. And then we have focused on the very basic for the carbon isotope of, actually we have also done carbon isotope of diatom to see the carbon cycle of the lake, the older lake. As I have also done in there is another lake in the region that is called Manasbal Lake, and it's a very rich in diatom. So we have focused on the diatom, and then we have tried to use the carbonate and diatom to, so it might be possible that we can calculate this paleo pH using these two proxies. I'm working on it, so I'm not very confident. So I can't I can't discuss this, but actually we are trying. If we will get, we will present somewhere on the.
Nice. So we've had one question in from the audience, which I put into the chat. So very interesting work. How do you think the transport of grass versus woody charcoal impacts your BC fluxes, particularly as you see these switches between C4 to C3 burning?
Okay, actually, in general, actually, it is possible that there are studies that have showed this transportation of the macro charcoal, and actually, but in our studies, the location of the lake, means altitude of the lake is around 3,500 meters. And there are a lot of studies that have suggested that after 2,000 meter altitude, there are no C4 plants. There are very rare C4 plants. So in our study, we have assumed that it might be possible there were no C4 plants. Like if you have seen in the data in the delta 13C, it was ranging from -25 to -22. But after during the Holocene, these are delta 13C degrees, and it goes to -27. So that was actually maybe because of this human induced burning in the valley region. So we are assuming that, yeah, the black carbon was coming into the lake, was produced at that altitude, around 35 or other 3,000 meter altitude.
So I'm not a paleofire specialist. I'm so sorry if this is a silly question, but I was wondering can you tell which plants have been burned depending on the charcoal that you find?
Miss, people are doing, they are doing charcoal as well as this paleological history using the pollen. But with this study, actually, you can't say it's an isotopic signature. You can't just identify the C3 or C4 plants, but which plants like oak trees or the silver fir. So for that, actually, we have to do this pollen analysis.
Okay. Nice. So if you had to repeat the project in a different location, which one would you pick and why?
Miss, I want to go more. Miss, I want to do this same location, but particularly on these archaeological sites.
Cool.
These are the sites that vary from the archaeological site in the Kashmir. Actually, I want to focus on the archaeological sites and then want to compare how this was linked to the human or whether it was linked to other with the climate. Because it is still, there are a lot to investigate in that region. So I'm interested into that.
Awesome. Yes. Okay, we'll give the audience a minute or so to send in any very last questions, and then we'll close out. Okay, if there are no more questions, I will close out. So thank you very much to Abdur Rahman for a really, really great talk. I know I definitely learned a lot this afternoon. And thank you very much to everyone in the audience for joining us. Please remember to fill out our weekly feedback form. The link will be in the chat very shortly so that we can learn a bit more about who attended today's seminar. And join us next week at the time of 4 o'clock UTC, where we'll be joined by Joshua Zote from University of California, Berkeley in the United States of America. And the talk will be exploring the stratigraphic expression of extinction events, a case study of the late Ordovician mass extinction. We hope to see everyone next week. And up next, we have tea time with Abdur Rahman, which we very much encourage you to stay for. So this is just an informal conversation about the talk in a relaxed setting, as if we were taking our speaker to tea after their talk. And our question of the week this week is, what is your favorite season? But before we move into tea time, we have a short break for 2 minutes. So remember to get up, walk around, have a quick drink of water, come back in 2 minutes. And if you have any pets, we also like to meet these too. So remember to bring them to tea time. See you in a few minutes.